welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which we find out that being one of a kind is the most important thing you can be. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday night. Wonderful, turbulent Thursday night. Hope you're all doing well this evening. Oh, it's been a week, hasn't it? It has been a week. Time flies when you're going through day after day of tumult and craziness and scandal and this, that, and the other. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Well, we'll get into a kind of scandal here in a moment. But before then, who's joining me for this adventure into non-fungible tokens? Jaeger Pony, hello. Noah Asensio, hello. Shell D, hello. Mike R, hello. Okay, what is this now? Orator of the Darkest Dr. Pepper Daximus Rex, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Who else is here? Seftus Wolf, hello. Mr. Joestar, hello. Jonathan Peterson, hello. Chicago Mike, hello. Pissed Off Shitsu, hello. Absolutely Degenerate, hello. Blakester, pardon me. Or Blakester? Bleakster, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello. Shady Grin, hello. And is that everybody I see? Old Guy Gamer, hello. Everybody's coming in bit by bit. Well, for those of you that I either missed or are lurking or are in the future, hello. Hope you're all doing well. So NFTs. I mean, heck, simply by saying the word, I'll probably get a bunch of bots on this stream. It happens when I go on Twitter and even mention the word without a hashtag or anything. I suddenly get like, oh, NFTs, these really helped me. These made me $1 million. What are NFTs? Well, I'll give you my baseline understanding in a second. Deco, hello. Pissed Off Shitsu, hello. Keldrig, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Hello. All right, so NFTs. I am not an expert. There's my preamble. I'm not an expert. However, I have watched a few videos on the subject, and a really good one, a really eye-opening one that I'd recommend is one from CoffeeZilla. If you don't know CoffeeZilla, he's a YouTuber that covers financial matters, scandals, scammers, and so on. And he did a video, I think a few months ago now, covering NFTs, or at least profiling them. And here's what I understand about NFTs, both from that video and elsewise. Basically, in most cases, you are paying for an image, a JPEG or a GIF or something like that. And this image is meant to increase in value because of its rarity. It's like, baseball cards, except that you're paying for the most unique baseball card in the world. And then you can trade this thing for more money. It'll go up in value because of its rarity and because of the popularity of it. It's basically like penny stocks. But here's the thing. With most, well, I shouldn't say with most. If you get involved in this, I'll just warn you this right now. If you get involved with this, read the fine print and double check what exactly you're buying, because it is entirely possible you may be buying not an image, but simply the URL to an image. Because it costs money to register things on the blockchain. And the larger a file is in memory size, the more money it costs to register and keep on the blockchain. And so a lot of these NFT mills will simply sell you a URL, which doesn't take up much space, to an image being held on a server somewhere. So it's entirely possible that if someone in the future buys that server or gains access to that server and changes the destination or the item that the destination of the URL is to, you'll own a URL to something you didn't actually want. It's also possible you could be the 70th person to be sold that URL for that same image. It's all very goofy. What does that have to do with tonight's talk? I don't know, because tonight's talk is going to tell us how NFTs can be social change agents. Now remember, we're talking about electronic items that are meant to be quote-unquote unique on the blockchain that you have paid actual money for. NFTs as social change agents. Now, it's particularly interesting that I do this particular talk on this particular night, because just today, I think it was, former President Donald Trump announced his latest project, which is an NFT gallery. that he is selling for $99 a pop. All these randomly generated Donald Trump images that he's selling for $99 a piece. I feel sorry for those that decide to invest in this, because I doubt they're going to make any money back. But you never know. Something is worth as much as someone else is willing to pay for it. So if someone decides that a $99 Donald Trump NFT is worth $102, you might make $3 off the deal. I'm an English major, not a math major. Anyway, let's get into it. We have a speaker going to tell us about how NFTs as social change agents. This one clocks in at just under 11 minutes, so it's a little shorter than some TEDx's in the past, but we'll soldier through. Tonight's bingo card is bingo card C. C as in CryptoPunk. If you'd like to join in on the poll that decides the bingo card each week, be sure to follow me on Twitter. You can find that tag in the description or on the screen there at scribe_light. Also, if you'll take a moment to direct your attention to the top of the chat box for the GoFundMes to our friends, Angry Illinoisian and his kitten. They, their friends, and loved ones could certainly use your help, especially this time of year. So if you have a couple of bucks to spare, please consider donating it there before you donate it to me. All right, with all that as preamble, is everybody in? Is everybody in? The ceremony is about to begin. Let's begin.
One of my earliest memories of Christmas is actually one year where I wanted a Spider-Man bike.
Okay, well, one year I wanted a Spider-Man bike. That sounds like a childhood or family anecdote to me, so circling that on the board for reference. And also, I'll go over the bingo card real quick so everybody knows what we're listening for. Plays victim, leaves out vital context, weightless example, anecdote that probably never happened, benevolent condescension, self-vilification or wretchedness, feminism, childhood or family anecdote, which we just had, privilege, sales pitch for product or service, it's entirely possible on this one, microaggressions or unconscious bias, patriarchy, wage gap, mind reading or assumes motives, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, word salad, diversity, equity, and or inclusion, marginalized or marginalization, contradicts own point or argument, systemic or institutional, a list, remember there has to be a formal list as part of the presentation, white supremacy, argumentative non sequitur, and lastly, collectivizes own demographic. So with that, let's proceed.
Something that I really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my parents, God bless their soul, they thought that I needed clothes and books instead of this bike.
Yeah.
Okay. But I told them, I go, hey, that's okay. But guess what? With this bike, I'll be able to go to the store and I'll be able to go to the library to read these books. See, we can actually, if you give me this bike, I can actually kill 2, 3, maybe 4 birds with one stone, right?
Okay, you're haggling. I guess I can appreciate that. Is there a point at the end of this bike ride?
That went so-so.
Uh-huh.
Okay, but in order for me to get this bike, I needed to write this letter to Santa, right?
Okay, right.
So what did I do? I took out my paper, my pen, and I started writing, Santa, I want this bike. I need this bike. I know that you'll understand. You'll understand that I really need this bike. Mom and Dad, but you'll totally know where I'm coming from, Santa, right? So,
please tell me that the story took place when you were a child and not like 4 years ago or something.
So I did, right? I wrote the letter. I gave it to my parents because my parents were the ones that represented the middlemen, right? So I needed to give it to them in order for them to give it to Santa, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, Christmas comes. I'm excited. I run down and I see a Spider-Man logo, right? I see it in the corner. So I run up to the tree, and it's a book, and it's a bunch of clothes, right? Okay.
We've been on quite a journey together. Yes, we have. Is the Spider-Man bike the NFT, or is the letter to Santa the NFT? Are you the NFT?
Now, I share this story out of fun and in a comedic way, but
but it wasn't funny at all, and held within it no comedy. Is that the joke?
My parents mean well, okay?
Yeah, they meant well. They got you things that were better for you than a Spider-Man bike.
I'm trying to, make him look bad or anything. But in this example, my parents represent a concept that was really new to me at the time and that really kind of changed the way I saw things.
Oh.
I think for a lot of us as well,
Okay.
at this certain age, maybe. Conventional trust.
Conventional trust. I'm trying to decide if I even know that term. Okay, tell me, what is conventional trust?
Okay. The idea that things are and things are supposed to be and things run a certain way, right?
Oh, so conventional wisdom, you mean? That kind of, is that what we're talking about? I guess that's what we're talking about. I don't know.
This idea of this conventional trust that I could not give this letter to Santa if I had to go through my parents. This idea of conventional trust was new to me, but it kind of, I saw it in school. I saw it in high school when I got my first bank account, when I had to go get my driver's license. Like I saw it in different aspects of my life, right? Now, something interesting happened to me the other day.
Okay. Conventional trust. If that is a common buzz phrase, coin of term, I don't know that. So just tentatively, I'm going to circle attempts to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. I think it means the same as common wisdom, but conventional trust. Okay. I mean, might be synonyms, but whatever.
We were traveling, right?
We?
So
who's we?
We were at the airport and I needed a ride to where I was going to stay, right? So
got a cab.
The obvious thing would be for any of us to just, get a taxi, right?
Yes.
All we have to do is raise our hand or jump on a bus that takes us somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I did the most obvious thing, right? I reached for my phone and I picked up an Uber. Right?
An Uber is a taxi. I'm not sure if you know that.
Now, the next most obvious thing would be for me to go to my hotel. So I did the most obvious thing. I took out my phone and I made sure that the driver knew where my Airbnb was that I was going to stay at, right?
Yeah.
And as I was shopping around, I saw things that I liked and I wanted them. So again, the most obvious thing, I grabbed my phone and I bought them on Amazon so they can go straight to my house, right?
So you're lazy and reliant on apps. But all these things serve the exact same purpose, just without as much effort on your part, I guess. You don't have to raise your hand for a taxi. An Airbnb is basically just a rented room, so you might as well call it a hotel or a motel. And yeah, okay, this is leading somewhere, I hope.
Now, this whole, from the airport to the Amazon thing, let's say it happened in an hour, right?
Okay.
But what's interesting is that in this hour, in these 60 minutes, I was actually able to demonstrate the redistribution of that trust, right?
What? Whoa. Redistribution of that trust. Instead of raising your hand to hail a taxi, you effectively sent an email to a taxi. Instead of going to a hotel, you went to a hotel room. Instead of going and buying your groceries, you had your food delivered. What?
That digital trust, if you will.
Okay. Okay. Digital trust. Yes, I guess you did put your faith in the apps, the various apps that you would have a car show up and that you would have a hotel room waiting for you and that the food would be delivered. But even if these things took place in an analog fashion, if you had made a phone call to a taxi company, if you had reserved a room over the phone, if you had ordered your food over the phone, you are paying for a service You're putting your trust in other people to provide you with a service. The method by which you communicate with them, your desires might have changed, but the mechanisms are exactly the same as anything that took place before the digital age. But okay, yeah.
Now, I know that most of us nowadays, we do our online banking.
Yeah.
Some of us even pay, our mortgages. We can do that through the phone, right? Through our phones.
Oh my God.
And technology with that conventional trust, just like many different aspects of our lives, they come together. And when they do, great things can happen.
Yeah, but also terrible things can happen. That's your follow-up, right?
But also some things that are a little bit disturbing can also happen.
Yeah, this is why I pay for all of my utilities through check, and I don't do electronic checks for any of my necessities. I used to work long ago. I used to work in accounts processing for a company, I will say, and I was responsible for many things, but one of the things I was responsible for was taking checks over the phone. Yeah, this was just on the cusp of like being able to manage your stuff electronically. And so phone checks and electronic payments and things like that. And unbeknownst to our customers at the time, the technology we were using to process these things was probably from the, mid 1990s. And as a result of that, on many an occasion, I witnessed that there were errors that took place with the wrong amounts being subtracted from people's bank accounts, or amounts being subtracted from people's bank accounts that weren't supposed to be subtracted from those bank accounts, and so on. I came from an insider's perspective not to trust electronic payment processing. And so when it comes to my necessities, my electricity bill, my phone bill, my internet, my rent, things like that, whenever it is possible to do so, I write a paper check. I'd rather have a paper trail. I'd rather not trust digital if I can help it. So yes, digital life has made things very convenient and easy for many of us. Yet there are also pitfalls. You're correct. And so one of those dangerous things is going to be NFTs, right?
We have such great applications like Facebook, right? Which was the original the original message or mission was to essentially be able to connect people, right? Me be able to post a picture here and then have a friend who lives in Asia be able to see that picture. We can communicate. He can send me and I can send to him, right?
Right. I'm going to circle sales pitch for product or service because between Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, and now Facebook, this guy is just a talking billboard. So I'm going to circle that one. Yes, Facebook, well, actually was meant to generate ad revenue and everything else and money. But okay, yes, its service to the user was ostensibly to connect people one to another and gather their metadata. But we don't talk about that too much, right? Unless that's going to be your point.
That was the original message of Facebook, to connect people. But again, when we have technology and conventional trust, when they come together, sometimes other things can happen. For example, we had Facebook who was actually compromising some of our data.
Some? Okay. Okay, you're halfway through your presentation now, and the term NFT has not yet been spoken. Is this going to be one of the best TEDx's ever in that it's one of the worst ever?
For their own means, for ads, but also for maybe some news segments that we were watching, right? Or the news that was coming to us. Now, you could say in a way that, Facebook being one example, that conventional trust was maybe not meant for the digital age.
Okay.
Maybe there's a disconnect somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And really in this civil war of our data that we're currently having, you can also say that when, examples like blockchain came around, we were actually, was able to be, successful and really resonate with people, right?
Okay, dude, first off, and this is one of my pet peeves, and I do my best to avoid it as much as possible. Sometimes it's subconscious and you can't avoid it. But whenever somebody ends every other sentence with the question right to the audience, If you're asking me to validate whatever you're saying, what are you doing on that stage in the first place? Okay, either you have a point and a presentation to make, or you don't know what you're talking about. That's always a pet peeve of mine. When somebody just constantly and reflexively asks right at the end, it drives me nuts. That aside, you can't just bring up these concepts casually. Blockchain, you know the blockchain, right? No, let's pretend I don't. Let's pretend I have no idea what the blockchain is. You have to give me a summary so that I have some idea of how it fits into your presentation. Man, you know, I become such a connoisseur of these things. I can appreciate a presentation that is terrible, but is at least well put together. You know, even if the subject matter is presented badly, or I don't agree with it, or something like that. If it's a well put together presentation, if I can follow along, you know, logically, insofar as the presentation's construction is concerned, great. If I feel like I'm listening to an essay, then we're probably on good footing. In this instance, dude, I have no idea where you're going, and you're already halfway going to nowhere.
Right? When we have this conventional trust and this, misuse of our data, right? Now, okay, then that brings us to blockchain, right?
I mean, if you say so. I guess Spider-Man's bike finally took us to blockchain. Okay, tell us about blockchain.
Okay. The interesting thing about blockchain is that it is a very complex thing to explain to people, right?
I'll take your word for it. It is a complex thing to explain to people. Okay, you've got 4 minutes, just over 4 minutes. Can you explain it to me? Are you going to bother?
And I'm not here to necessarily explain to you how it works. I know a lot of us have heard of Bitcoin. A lot of us have heard of, NFTs.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk to you about today is not so much the technology, but what it's doing.
You know, this is where your presentation should have started. You could have excised everything prior to this and started here. What I want to talk to you today is blah. What? Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
For example,
okay.
We often think that blockchain is a new technology, right? It's accomplishing something new. It's doing something new. But in reality, it's actually not creating something new, but it's fixing a really old problem that we have.
Oh.
Right?
It's like my brain is walking on eggshells waiting for that next right. It just it drives me absolutely up the wall. Thank you, Keldrig. It's pretty annoying, right? Yeah. Right. For those of you that used to watch my scripted content back when I made it, God knows it's been a long time. I used to inject a little clip of Cenk Uygur going right to denote every time it happened in a video because it got on my nerves so much. All right. Let me go to the card real quick. Leaves out vital context, circling that one. Weightless example, spider bike, circling that one. Let's see, benevolent condescension. No, let's see. Okay, I'm not going to think too hard at this particular juncture. So far I have circled leaves out vital context, weightless example, childhood or family anecdote, sales pitch for product or service, and attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. Excuse me. Okay, dude, you got 4 minutes.
Now, we talked a little bit about, Facebook and some of the innovations that we've had. But there's also another innovation that we have that's also been compromised by that conventional trust and by the technology emerging. That's us. That's our identities, our data.
Yeah, all right.
What that means to us.
Yeah.
I mean, as we saw, for example, in some of the most recent elections, our data and our identities were often compromised, or they were often not. It was maybe we didn't have enough tallies, or there weren't enough people that were registered to vote. Let's just say.
What?
And our data, or our digital identity, per se, became very, very valuable during times like the election. So
how?
we have, we have this essentially, the blockchain technology that, kind of like I spoke about, and how, we've also heard.
You haven't. Oh my God. I can occasionally pick a stinker, but I picked a real dud here. This is, like I say, it is grating on my nerves, like fingernails on a chalkboard between all the rights and just the mishmash disorganization of this entire thing.
It's actually a way that we can, have peer-to-peer transactions and do it in a way that we can actually go ahead and eliminate that middleman.
How will you explain this to us? Even give us a 30,000-foot definition of how the blockchain works. Could you do that at least? I mean, I have some idea just, all by my lonesome over here, but it'd be nice if you included that in your presentation about blockchain and NFTs, if that is even what we're talking about now.
My call to action to you today is to not look at blockchain and to not look at, Bitcoin and NFTs as a craze, or as, don't try to understand something that may be complex for us to understand.
What? Don't try to understand something that may be complex for us to understand? What?
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Whoa, okay, don't try to understand something that is complex to understand. I'll keep that in mind, informative TEDx talk guy, I guess. Thank you, Jaeger Pony. I think he was possessed by the spirit of Grandpa Simpson. Nothing but rambling. Yeah, looking at the clock, I have a feeling this is going to be a double feature tonight, guys, because I don't know that I can get a full show out of this guy. I thought this would be something more informative. We haven't even gotten to how NFTs can be social change agents. I really have to wonder if somebody at TEDx watched this thing and tried to derive a title out of it, or maybe he'll get to it. I mean, he's got a couple of minutes. Who knows what he's going to do? Good gravy.
But to understand one thing, that blockchain is actually fighting polarization that some previous misuse of data has created.
How?
That community.
How?
By building that community.
Give me an example.
It's interesting how, Web3 and blockchain has been able to attract people from social media, people like Nike, people like Adidas, people like in fashion.
Wait. Are you at an industry convention or something? You throw out terms like Web3 and okay. At least in recent memory, this might be not necessarily the worst TEDx I've ever seen, but certainly, now you know what? It probably is one of the worst TEDx's I've ever seen. It's not only is it disorganized and all over the place, it makes no sense. It just somebody voted this in to end up on stage. They must have had a really small list of applicants
that have absolutely zero knowledge or zero experience with programming per se, but it has attracted them. And instead of we have the polarization that we have, where we have someone on one end and someone on the other end saying, this is the way it should be and they're wrong and vice versa.
What?
Instead, what blockchain is doing is it's actually building a community where we're all fighting for that mistrust.
What? We're all fighting for that mistrust? What? Okay, I'm really not trying to be a soft touch on this tonight, but seriously.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Right?
I just, and thankfully that chink right was there as well. Okay, guy, I don't even know. I'm just going to let this play out now. It's only got a few seconds left. This is going to be a double feature. This is going to be a TED Excellence double feature. I've got a couple others sitting in the wings.
To many people, until the mass adoption, blockchain will not be about smart contracts, about Bitcoin, about NFTs. but it's going to be about community. And my call to action for you today is, again, to find out between you and that cell phone that's in your pocket right now, exists the very problem with mistrust.
What?
But through communities like blockchain is built, the solution also lies between you and that cell phone in your pocket right now.
What?
And that solution is to join us.
Who's
To
us?
fight mistrust.
To
Because
fight
all of
mistrust. You
us at
said
some
fight
point have had
for
our
mistrust.
identities, and especially now our digital identities, compromised. The solution, again, is for you, like me with Santa, like my letter to Santa. It's often a very easy solution. But when we understand that by building that community and fighting that mistrust, we're actually fighting the polarization. We're fighting the misuse of our data. So again, this problem lies here, but the solution also lies here. Thank you.
Okay, circling word salad. I don't even know if we're going to bingo out of this one, but I'm going to give it a shot. I will give it a shot just for the heck of it. Oh my gosh, guys. Sometimes I can just pick them. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, here's where we're at. I'm going to go over it one more time. This is probably going to end up being a double feature. Plays victim. Did he play the I don't know. Not really. I guess not. I don't anecdote that probably never happened. He only gave us a couple, and I could believe his parents didn't get him a bike because he doesn't seem like much of a negotiator. Benevolent condescension. I didn't get any kind of arrogance out of this guy, honestly. I just yeah, anyway. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No, not really. Feminism, no. Privilege. Yeah, I'll say that, doing the whole Amazon delivery of food and Airbnb and Uber and everything else, it at least indicates a little bit of privilege. I'm stretching here just for a bit. I don't know. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, no. Patriarchy. I mean, he did talk about Santa Claus, but no. Free space, I'll circle free space just for the heck of it because it's there. And Dog Cat Fox, he needs some attention. Wage gap, no. Mind reading assumes motives. Yeah, well, he assumed everybody knew blockchain, Web3. You can just throw these terms out there without explanation or any kind of example. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, if I really want to go Mr. Fantastic on this, I could say inclusion could refer back to community, but I don't know about that one. Marginalization, no. Contradicts own point or argument. What was his argument? I mean, you know what? The absence of any details, he contradicted himself by not specifying what the heck he was talking about. And then like fighting for mistrust and fighting against mistrust anyway, systemic, institutional. He did talk about sort of community, society, ways that the things work, systems. Yeah, all right, I'll give myself that. A list. Was there a formal list in this? No, there wasn't really. White supremacy, no. Argumentative non sequitur. Can I count the ways? Just a few, right? And lastly, collectivize his own demographic. His own demographic. He didn't really specify demographics. So I think that's where we're at. Sorry, let me zoom in on that a little bit. There we go. And also, before it runs away, thank you, Redneck Ram. Hi, Ascribe. Starting from the beginning, are we going to have some NF trees being planted in this one? I wish NF trees was actually interesting. It was ridiculous, but it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. This guy was just, there was I think it was Mark Twain. I think he described someone's writing at one point as chloroform in print. And I kind of feel that that's what we have here. We have chloroform in TEDx talk. Anyway, I will take brief arguments for squares to be circled. And then I'm going to have to look and see if I've got another one at the ready here. I'll have to pick one. I've got several. Which one do I want to do? Let's see. How long is that one? That one's 16 minutes. Do I have something relatively brief? Relatively. I don't want to go forever. Yeah, but if you have a argument for a square yet to be circled on this bingo card, put it in the chat now. I'll get to them in a moment. Oh, that's a long TEDx. That's like 17 minutes almost. I don't have anything else. Oh man, I got such a library of these things now. Now they're like formal TEDx's. Let's see. What do we got? Tony Giff, I think we need to buy Scribe a Lordship in Scotland this Christmas. I already have one. Sister Scribe got me one last year. So there you go. Absolutely degenerate. The Spider-Man bike thing almost feels like a Plays victim, even though he said his parents were well-meaning and he didn't hold a grudge. Oh, that's true. That's true. He was obviously still bitter about it, wasn't he? Just a little bit bitter at his stage in life. Okay, I'll grant you that. A little bit of Plays victim. Sure enough. Oh, how far back in time? Ooh, let's see. Diversions. Oh, sorry. I'm going over my library of TEDx's that I could possibly do here to take up the latter half of the show. And oh man, this is tough. Ooh, here we go. How to bring your diverse voice to the workplace. Oh boy, it's only 10 minutes. I can handle that. Sure, why not? We'll learn how to bring our diverse voice to the workplace. Somehow, some way. Let me get that queued up here for a second. You guys, if you have any other arguments for squares to be circled, guys, just let me know. I will, whoops, what is that? Okay, Chrome, you're doing something goofy on me. No, not that. Apologies for the momentary dead air as I try to prep this thing, because I'm trying to do this on the fly. I had not expected that I'd be done with that TEDx this quickly. I thought there'd be something more to it. But as you know, I never know what I'm going to get. TEDx is like a box of chocolates. And that's really what we have to deal with at times. Okay, any other arguments? Yvonne Solomon, for DEI, specifically the I, he kept talking about NFTs were building communities. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking that if we're going to get anywhere near DEI for this one, it's probably going to have to be that one. So I will go along with that. Last call for arguments for squares to be circled, guys. And then we'll move on to part 2 of our unexpected, unplanned double feature. Let's see. Advocatus Diaboli, I'm going to vote that night's TEDx in my suicide note. That's kind of grim. Don't be grim here. Well, this is supposed to be entertaining and fun and ironically funny in some way, shape, or form, or at least sardonically. Oh boy. All right, guys. Well, with that, I think we're done with this TEDx, this particular TEDx, not TED Excellence, the broadcast. We still have one more to go, but well, we got a double WTF and several squares circled. So let's move on, shall we? Let me reverse time on the. So there's your bingo card for this TEDx. I'm going to reverse time and clear out the bingo card. We're going to redo the next one with bingo card C, as per usual. Not going to change that up. And let's see what happens when I do this. So that's what happens. All right, guys, here we go. TEDx number 2, how to bring your diverse voice to the workplace. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to tweak the audio on this one. So if it ends up being not so great, not much I can do about it now. If the audio is terrible, like it's completely originally terrible, maybe I'll find another one, or maybe I'll call this short. I'm not quite sure. We'll find out. All right, so clear out your bingo cards. Let's get ready to learn how to bring your diverse voice to the workplace in this double feature, TED Excellence. Okay.
Imagine for a moment that you've been invited to a meeting at work.
Okay, imagine for a moment that you've been invited to a meeting at work. Okay, this sounds far more well prepared than our previous speaker. The sound is a little light for my liking, but again, this is the best I have at this moment in time, so we'll just have to strain our ears slightly. But here we go.
You step into the room, virtually or physically, and you see that you're surrounded by people who, to you, seem so much smarter, so much more experienced,
right,
so much more worthy of being in that space than you are.
Yes.
How do you show up?
I already have. If I can see the people, or I know the people, or I can hear the people being smarter than I am, I've already shown up. Or is this a trick question?
Do you trust yourself?
Well, that's kind of a deep question. Yes, I do trust myself. Except that obviously I don't have the self-esteem to believe in myself beyond the people in the same room. But of course, I don't know what subject is being discussed, so maybe I'm a complete idiot on it. If I'm in a room full of economists, then I'll probably be the dumbest guy in the room. But I don't have enough details. Okay. Well, wait, no, I'll give her a chance to finish this. What are we doing?
Do you freely share your ideas?
If I think they have any merit to the discussion.
Do you ask questions if you don't understand something?
I probably would. It depends. What are we talking about? What is the subject being discussed? I don't know. Maybe. The answer is maybe. To all of these questions, the answer is maybe.
If you're like most people, you don't.
Okay, why'd you bother asking me the question?
Instead, you likely second guess yourself and worry that if you do speak up, others will realize you don't belong in that room.
Again, that sounds like a self-esteem issue. Why am I there in the first place? Was I invited? Is it an open forum? Do I work for this group? Like, okay, everybody's insecure and doubts themselves into oblivion. The end.
This was my story. I stumbled into the high-tech industry in my mid-20s with a psychology degree and no expectation of ever working in corporate America.
You have a psychology degree and you stumbled into the tech industry. Okay, well, how did that go?
Within a year, I was promoted to the role of alliance manager, which required that I regularly attend meetings where I was by far the youngest, often the only woman, and undoubtedly the least technical person in every room.
Why did you accept the job? If by your own metrics you are underqualified for the position, why did you accept the job? Never mind that your superiors were dumb enough to give you a job you weren't qualified for. That's totally on them. Why did you accept a job that you already had a notion you would be out of your depth in trying to cover?
As someone who is accustomed to being a high achiever, I was so aware of all that I didn't know.
Obviously, your employers didn't care about that, which is bizarre.
The anxiety was crippling. I consistently worried that I had nothing of value to share.
Well, did you?
Especially as compared to those around me. Speaking up felt far too risky because I had convinced myself that the minute I open my mouth, everyone is going to realize I have no business being here.
Well, is that true? Because if it is demonstrably true, then maybe you didn't have any business being there. It's not like somebody's just owed respect and position because they show up. They actually have to possess the skills, experience, and knowledge necessary to, live up to the position they've been given. At least that's the hope. That's not often necessarily the case, as we're seeing right now.
Instead, I would sneak quietly into the back of the room and just pray that no one would ask a question that would out me as a fraud.
Okay. Well, yeah, so you shouldn't have had that job. You shouldn't have accepted that job, and your employers and supervisors were dumb to give you that job. Okay.
Fast forward 20 years.
20 years? Okay. 2 decades go by.
I'm now a leadership coach. And the number one challenge facing my bright, talented, highly competent clients is virtually identical.
What? Self-doubt, imposter syndrome? Wow. Golly gee whiz. What happened in those 20 years? You're no longer in the tech industry? You're a leadership coach? Did you learn how not to hide in the back of the room in those 20 years, that your leadership coaching skills should have any credibility whatsoever now? Are you going to tell us about your journey from nervous Nelly to confident Karen?
To my own experience. They repeatedly tell me, when I'm in meetings, I feel like everyone is so much smarter than I am. I'm worried that I'm going to say the wrong thing and everyone's going to realize I don't know what I'm doing. Why do we do this to ourselves?
It's called a lack of self-confidence. It's called perhaps a series of instances where someone is elevated to a position or a belief in a talent that they don't actually either possess or deserve. And after many such instances, and being at least somewhat honest with themselves that they actually don't belong there, it's not a matter of just being, lacking self-confidence inherently or imposter syndrome, even though they do possess the requisite merits and things. It's that they don't. And they know that they don't, but they keep somehow failing upwards, and that fear never goes away because they know the truth. They know the truth of their own situations. Thank you, A2P, for the hamburger. I got a burger from A2P. Is it a Five Guys Burgers and Fries? Is it McDonald's? Is it Jack in the Box? Ooh, thank you, A2P, for the burger. I had a burger yesterday. So, are you psychic? I think so. Anyway, why do we do this to ourselves?
What's going on here?
You tell me.
You might recognize this as imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
A common phenomenon in the workplace that strikes roughly 70% of us at one time or another.
Yeah, but in your case, you really were an imposter. It wasn't some delusion or something. It was truth. Imposter
syndrome is that sense that I'm not as good as other people think I am.
Yeah, well, in your case, it wasn't a sense. It was a fact.
I may be performing at a high level. I may be getting great feedback from the outside world. But inside, I feel like a fraud.
Okay, there's feeling like a fraud, and then there's being a fraud. It sounds like in your situation, it was the latter. So one's a psychological self-confidence thing. The other is just being in the wrong place.
Imposter syndrome often strikes people who feel different from the majority culture around them. This is why we often see it in women in traditionally male-dominated fields, people of color, and members of other historically marginalized groups.
Historically marginalized groups. First off, those are demographics, not groups. Let's see. Plays victim, circling that one on the card, certainly. And I'm also going to circle feminism, just as a extension of her comment there. I'll also circle free space just because, well, it's free space. Okay, circling that one. Let's see, anything else on here that fits so far? Oh, mind reading assumes motives. Yeah, she did that at the top of the talk by telling us all that, she knows what we think and what we talk or think of ourselves. And collectivizes own demographic. Gonna circle that one. And I think I'll stop there for the moment. There might be others, but let's move on.
What's deeply unfortunate about imposter syndrome is that those who are most likely to be affected are those whose voices we need most right now.
Okay, so even though you were a psychology major and you had no technical experience of any note, and you sat in the back of the room and were scared to be called upon or anything else, your voice really needed to be heard. About what? If you had no expertise or knowledge to offer to the conversations dealing with technical things, what purpose is your voice in those conversations? Again, are you talking about people who are suffering from a psychological anxiety disorder, self-confidence problem, or are you talking about people who actually do not possess the skills, experience, and knowledge necessary to fulfill their positions? Which is it?
We all know that the status quo is not working for many or even most of us.
Oh, we all know this. Well, if I hadn't already circled mind reading, I would have circled it again. We all know, do we? The status quo is not working for most of us. In what way? Who are you talking about? What are you talking about?
To create meaningful change, we need diverse voices.
Oh, diverse voices. Okay, well, circling diversity, equity, inclusion. All right, well, what constitutes a diverse voice? What is a diverse voice versus a non-diverse voice? I mean, where does a diverse voice come from versus the alternative?
Who will ask questions.
Oh, asking questions constitutes a diverse voice. Okay. I'm just trying to get this all in my mind here. Okay, so a diverse voice asks questions.
Challenge old ways of doing things.
A diverse voice challenges old ways of doing things. Okay, so a diverse voice is curious and innovates.
And propose creative solutions.
Oh, and proposes creative. Okay, all right. So that's what defines a diverse voice. Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm glad that you defined this for us.
But if those voices are silenced by fear, shame, self-doubt, pressure to conform, we are doomed to repeat old patterns.
What grand innovations or advancements were withheld from your company when you were hiding in the back of the room, having no technical experience whatsoever? I would love to know what grand advancements in your company's fortunes were withheld from them because of your self-doubt, because of your issues, because of your imposter status.
I believe that at the heart of this experience is a flawed assumption.
Oh.
When we find ourselves in a room full of people with different expertise than our own,
yeah,
our natural tendency is to assume that we are all in that room for the same reason.
Different expertise or more expertise?
Research suggests that we are naturally driven to compare ourselves to others as a way to better understand ourselves.
Yes, and where you fit in the ranking and pecking order of things. That's kind of how civilization and hierarchy works in groups and power structures. Yes, very good.
When benchmarks are realistic, this can serve us well.
Uh-huh.
But when we compare ourselves in unrealistic ways, it lowers our self-esteem.
Right. So if you're put into a job that is meant to oversee people that are highly technical in their knowledge and skills, and you possess none of those things, you shouldn't have taken that job. Your own example is putting a lie to your entire premise here, because it wasn't that you were unfairly treated. It wasn't that you were unfairly mistreating yourself. It's that you literally did not belong in the position you were in. Your own story tells us this. What are you on about? As my friends across the pond might say.
When the group consists of people who have different expertise than ours.
Different or more?
Say technical versus non-technical.
Psychology major versus computer science major, maybe?
And we evaluate them as having greater value or status than we do?
Which might be entirely correct, depending on the circumstances.
We begin to doubt ourselves.
Yes, and rightly so. You've been carrying this bitterness, this grudge, this sort of self-hatred for quite a while, haven't you? I'm going to circle self-vilification or wretchedness, because I think we might just be seeing her own mind and insecurities playing themselves out on the stage.
We assume that we don't have the right level of expertise.
You didn't.
or that others are more qualified or more capable of contributing than we are.
They were.
In reality, we are not in the room for the same reason. On cross-functional interdisciplinary teams, each one of us is there to play a distinct role.
Yeah, except that wasn't your role. Your role was to be a leader. You were overseeing things. You weren't doing cross-training, cross-functional teams. You're in a room with a whole bunch of other people who had educations that were far beyond anything that you could contribute to. If you're going to preface your entire presentation with a self-made example, that example better be on point with everything that follows. Otherwise, I'm always going to be coming back to it as the contradiction to your entire argument. Okay, the foundation of your presentation is sand right now. There was something similar, a TEDx I did years and years and years ago. This is like my first year or two of YouTube, where a guy comes out and he gives you a personal anecdote story as the basis for the project he's about to describe in the course of his TEDx. And the story that he gives is so inherently self-contradictory that none of the presentation and none of his project makes any sense after that. It is one of the most pure fruit of the poison tree presentations I've ever seen. I don't remember the name of it right now. I remember the thumbnail. It's just a bunch of silhouettes of people against a white background. Back when I couldn't choose the thumbnails I used, I think. But, oh man, this is one of those right now. This really is.
One that complements the expertise of others on the team.
Yeah.
Let's say you're building a house.
Okay.
The team that builds your house has a general contractor, a carpenter, plumber, electrician.
Yeah.
Now imagine that the plumber is paralyzed with fear because he doesn't know how to do the electrician's job.
Well, thankfully, he's a plumber. And he doesn't have to worry about that because that responsibility's been delegated elsewhere. Two completely different worlds. Yeah, okay. Yes. Imagine if he's paralyzed with fear, he doesn't know how to do the electrician's thing. Okay.
What happens to his work?
I don't know. What happens to his work?
And what happens to the house overall?
It'll have lousy plumbing, maybe. I don't know. And he'll be held accountable because usually plumbers and electricians operate in... I don't know, lady. Where are you going with this?
When I was in high tech and I found myself so distracted by what I didn't know,
Uh-huh.
I was desperate to solve the problem.
Uh-huh. Okay. And?
At one point, I decided the solution was to go back to school and study engineering.
There you go. Yay! Good job. Wait, is that what you did?
Simple as that. I would invest substantial time and money in a master's degree program to learn someone else's job.
No, not to learn someone else's job, to learn the job you'd already been given. Someone else's job, that's somebody else's job. You know, it could become your job if you had the knowledge, training, and experience. Where are you going with this?
I was 3 courses into the program when I decided to consult with a senior executive who led our engineering organization. I sat down with him and I said, sometimes I feel in a bit over my head in technical conversations.
Why didn't you tell this to him before you took the position? You knew that you were not qualified before you took the position. Why did you take the position?
Do you think I should get an engineering degree if I want to advance my career here? He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, an engineering degree? You don't need an engineering degree. You're surrounded by engineers.
Yes, only through osmosis need you worry about your knowledge base. All right, tell me you looked him in the eye and laughed in his face, right?
If you need to have a technical conversation, bring a technical person into the room with you.
Yeah, that's somebody else's job.
You don't need to know everything. As I left that room,
Yeah.
I felt like an enormous weight had been lifted from my shoulders.
Why take personal responsibility in enriching my own knowledge base, my own skills, my own education, when I can just shuffle it off to somebody else? I don't have to feel like an imposter. I've got a plug-in for that. There's an app for that, and his name is Joe, and he's down the hall, and he went to school for 7 years, and he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for an education. I don't need to do that. Hey, everybody, I'm a leader. I'll delegate.
And then it dawned on me.
Oh, it did.
I had never promoted myself as a technical person.
Well, at least you didn't perpetuate another lie actively. You just took a job that required technical knowledge that you did not possess, and your bosses didn't bother vetting you for actual knowledge qualifying you for the job. But okay, yeah, you didn't promote yourself as one.
Nobody around me thought I had technical skills.
Okay, and you didn't. So they were right.
It wasn't on my resume. I never described myself that way in interviews. Yet they hired me anyway.
Yeah, that is a very, very odd choice. I wonder. Now, what could possibly have driven them to hire you into a supervisory role for which you were not qualified by anything that you possessed either in education or work experience? I wonder what it might have been.
And they invite me to the meetings anyway. There must be another reason why I'm here.
I don't know. Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
That sudden realization became a turning point in my career.
Oh, yeah?
For so long, I had been so focused on what I didn't know
Uh-huh.
and what I didn't have to offer
Yeah.
that I had never taken the time to think about what I did know and how I could add value.
Is it in demographic percentages of the workforce?
From that point forward, I took a whole new approach to how I managed myself, not just in meetings, but on teams more broadly.
Ah.
Before every meeting,
Yeah.
I would ask myself one powerful mindset shifting question.
Oh my God, one powerful question? Everybody, one powerful question. What is that one powerful question? Ooh, any guesses? I'll take guesses for a second while I look at the bingo card. Let's see, leaves out vital context, a weightless example, anecdote that probably never happened. Given how her bosses didn't care that she didn't have the skills necessary, I believe that conversation she had with her boss. Benevolent condescension. That's somebody else's job. Yeah, I'll circle that one. Childhood or family anecdote, no. Privilege, no. Sales pitch for product or service, no. Microaggressions, unconscious bias. Well, you know, she's sort of like describing self-initiated unconscious bias. Also microaggressions. Let's see. Patriarchy, it's implied, but I'll wait on that. Wage gap, not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzer. Marginalized, marginalization. Yeah, those voices need to be heard, etc. Or being silenced or being shamed. I'll circle that one. And okay, we'll leave that for a second. So far I have plays victim, benevolent condescension, self-vilification or wretchedness, feminism, microaggressions, unconscious bias, free space, mind reading assumes motives, diversity, equity, and inclusion, marginalization, and collectivizes his own demographic. And by the luck of the draw, if you can believe it, down the diagonal from the B to the O, that spells...
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
We have our first bingo. Oh my God. All right. So what are your guys' guesses? The one powerful question. What's the one powerful question? Let's see. Got question marks. Advocatus Diaboli. Who am I? Why am I here? Admiral, what was his name? It wasn't Stansfield. It was something like that. Anyway, what Ross Perot's running mate? What do I bring to the team? Says Bridget, yes. Who can turn into a patsy if I fail? Says Tyrannus Alexandrius Tremirlich. Okay. Another one from Advocatus Diaboli. Do we need more donuts for the meeting? Ah, that's a good one. Let's see. And Advocatus again. Is there fresh coffee? All important, powerful questions. What's Aleppo? What's Aleppo? Absolutely degenerate. Am I a diversity hire? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What is that one powerful question that we need to ask ourselves before every meeting?
Why am I in this room?
Who am I? Why am I here? The winner, who guessed the price closest without going over, Advocatus Diaboli. Very good. Why am I here? Yeah, all right. Well, why are you there? It's not because you have an engineering degree.
Not in a philosophical sense, but in a very pragmatic sense.
Really? Pragmatism? If you had pragmatism going through this, you wouldn't have taken that job in the first place. And when the guy told you, nah, you don't need an engineering career to increase your engineering degree to further your career, you would have looked at him like he was from another planet. I'll just be fine just coasting on what I've got in an industry that I'm totally not prepared for. Yeah.
What purpose am I here to serve?
Well, obviously not much, because here's the thing I don't know if you considered when you actually talked to your manager about that. As soon as he told you, you don't need to get an engineering degree. Well, you're surrounded by engineers. Just grab one of them if you need some information on something. You know what that tells me? That unlike everyone around you, you are expendable. That's how you should have seen that comment. Not as a relief, a weight off your chest, but as a red flag, klaxon alarm over your head. That if you constantly need to go to other people to manage the information you don't possess or the skills you do not have, you are expendable. But anyway, you were saying?
Somebody must have thought I had value to offer, or I wouldn't be here. What do I know or bring that others don't?
If you don't know that, I don't know why your bosses hired you in the first place. I can't possibly know. But given what I have seen of hiring patterns and justifications thereof in my time on YouTube and listening to business after business after business and how they see individuals and what they value in individuals when they decide to hire people and especially put them into leadership roles, I have at least a sneaking suspicion that you were hired because you're a woman. And that's it. You were put in that job to fill out a demographic checkbox. That's my guess. Given the information that you've given us, given the story that you've relayed, and definitely how you decided to assimilate that information into a worldview for yourself, I have a sneaking suspicion. Thank you, Seftus Wolf. The same as all other women, your purpose is to make everyone sandwiches. Imagine if she'd come into with an engineering degree. She wouldn't be on this stage. She would not be on this stage trying to justify a career based on sand as a foundation. And how she completely turned around that conversation with her boss into one of relief and not alarm.
Whose interests am I here to represent?
I got one answer.
How can I complement the discussion rather than compete with others on their turf?
Well, why wouldn't you want to compete on their own turf? Isn't that how collaboration takes place, innovation, problem solving? Yeah, if you're not there to participate on a level at least equal-ish to those around you, maybe you shouldn't be there. Do you actually have anything to offer?
As soon as I made that simple shift, everything changed.
Really?
As an alliance manager, whose job it was to develop strong partnerships, I began to focus on how I could best support my partners and best represent my team. That led me to ask more powerful questions, speak with greater authority, and build more trusted relationships.
Okay, so was this role a technical one or not? Alliance leadership, alliance partnerships? I don't even know what that is supposed to do. It sounds like an extra level of bureaucracy made up just to put people into jobs. Okay.
My colleagues and superiors began to see me as someone who understood my area of the business and would proactively bring me into new conversations.
What was your area of the business? What did you do? What were you required to do? I mean, maybe I'm completely off base. Maybe the job description that she had nothing to do with technical terms and didn't have to require any kind of technical skills or wisdom or education or anything. What exactly was your function? If your function didn't have anything to do with anything technical, why did you feel out of place? If you knew that was not your responsibility, that it wasn't your area of either expertise or required of you of your job, why did you have imposter syndrome? The only reason you could have imposter syndrome at all is if you're put in a place where you're expected or assumed to have knowledge or skills you literally did not possess. So what? She's not going to tell us at this point. I'm not even sure what she's talking about. This is a more well-structured presentation than the last one, but it makes about as much sense.
Rather than cringe in horror at the thought of sharing a room with someone with different expertise than I had.
Different or more?
I developed a confident point of view.
So you fooled yourself into thinking you were actually better off than you actually were?
I would add to, rather than compete with that of others.
Uh-huh. So you knew you couldn't be on the same level, so you're just going to be a support system. Okay. I mean, if that's your job, is that your job? Was that your job?
In today's world, we need more diverse voices. We need more people who will ask questions, share their ideas, and challenge the status quo.
Okay, this is a sales pitch for a product or a service. She's got her website up there, her email, her LinkedIn, and the name of her business is in the email and the website. So, okay, sales pitch for product or service. I'll tell you this right now, your sales pitch has been pretty weak so far.
Most companies rely on innovation to stay competitive.
Yeah.
How can companies fully innovate when their employees are afraid to think differently?
Your situation wasn't thinking differently. You were put into a job where you did not belong because of your lack of knowledge, education, and skill. It's hard to offer something to the conversation when you have no basis of experience with which to apply to the conversation. You're conflating different things into one thing, and they are not the same things.
From those around them. How can we solve today's problems if it's not safe to offer new solutions?
By populating the teams working on the problems with people who have the educational skill base and experiences necessary to try to solve the problem. That's how. That's how you solve problems. You bring in people who have experience in those things. The right people for the right jobs. That's it. That is the long and the short. Any other considerations outside of that are irrelevant. What do you propose?
And how can we embrace and share what makes us special and unique?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. How do you tell people how special you are? In what way do you communicate that to people and let them know how special and unique you are? I mean, how does a snowflake sing? I don't know.
If we are always feeling pressure to be like everyone else.
That is a you problem.
And let's be clear. There are systemic and structural issues that undermine our confidence in psychological safety in the workplace.
Okay, well, systemic, institutional, that's circled up on the board. Okay, yeah, so your feelings, your sense of self-confidence, and self-initiation, you are a victim of outside forces preventing you from succeeding. Even though you were put in a job you were not qualified for, and you got the affirmation from your own superior that you were not needed to have a better education to continue working where you were at and just rely on other people to be your plug-in experts. Your own story belies your complaint.
These must be addressed as well.
Such as, name one. Name one of these systemic problems that need to be addressed. Give me one.
Every single one of us can do a better job of creating space and making it safe for others to share their ideas.
So I have to assume that everyone is a scared little child unable to speak up for themselves. Got it.
But if we are to ever achieve the true vision of an inclusive workplace, we need to start with ourselves.
Oh.
When we focus on conformity and competition, rather than embrace our uniqueness and seek ways to more boldly share our strengths with the world, we lose and our teams lose.
Yeah, we need to get away from conformity, guys. So let's populate our teams with people that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. Throw away standards, throw away prerequisites, throw away minimum expectations. You know, that's the best way to go. That's the best way to go. Chaos in a business. Unless you have a specific example you're going to give us, I'm going to circle leaves out vital context. You need, if you're going to say you have a solution to a problem, you need to describe the problem. I have a very big doubt that in the next minute and 10 seconds, you're going to give us all these problems that you mean to solve.
Madeleine Albright, who passed away this week.
Madeleine Albright passed away this week. How old is this TEDx? I don't know.
Served as ambassador to the United Nations before becoming the first female Secretary of State.
Yes.
She told a story of attending a Security Council meeting at the UN back in 1993.
Yes.
When she walked into the room, there were 15 Security Council members in attendance, 14 men from around the world, and her. She shared that her natural inclination was to hold back a bit. But then she added, all of a sudden, I look and I see this sign in front of me that says United States. And I thought to myself, if I don't speak today, the voice of the United States will not be heard. So I spoke. While your circumstances will certainly look different, the same principle is true every time you step into a room. It's time to stop comparing ourselves to others and ask ourselves, why am I in this room? Thank you.
Why were you in that room? I mean, looking back now, as you conceivably should be able to, why were you in that room in the first place? When you were hiding in the back and hoping no one would ask you any questions because you knew you could not answer anything technical because you had neither the education or experience necessary to do so. Why were you in that room? I mean, you had the right idea for about a second there and going after and saying, gosh, maybe I should get an engineering degree of my own so I don't have to feel like I don't belong. I can actually put the effort in order to earn something of merit so I don't have to guess in the future if I belong. I'll know I belong because I earned it. Oh, but as soon as somebody gave you a pass, you're like, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to go through all that. I'll just rely on these guys over here that did and completely devalue myself further as time goes on. Why were you in that room back then in the first place? Why are you a leadership coach now and not still in the tech industry? Okay. Anyway, there you go. That's number 2. No pun intended, but I'll take it, of our TED excellences tonight. Let's go to the bingo card and see what we come up with. We already have one bingo. Do you think we'll get another? Let's find out. Let me put this up here. Did that work? I didn't cut myself off. Good. All right. Well, let's see. What do we have left? Weightless example. Boy, oh boy. Weightless example. Did she give any examples? I mean, examples of what? Actually, I went to get an engineering degree and then I'm like, I didn't have to. And it's like, yeah, self-improvement. What? Take the lead in your own career? Just like that to me felt completely antithetical to what should have been going on there and everything else that she said. Why am I here? Not because I have an engineering degree. Anecdote that probably never happened. Again, I can believe that her supervisor, the person who was so, giving such glowing reviews to her performance, even though she didn't belong there, and even she knew that she needed more education to really feel like she belonged there, gave her a pass. That seemed to be the philosophy of the company she was working for, so I can believe it. Childhood or family anecdote. She never mentioned her childhood or family. Privilege. Yes, at least, if nothing else, then in the reverse of there are people that aren't allowed to speak or are systemically being oppressed in their voices and so on. So some people have that privilege and others don't. Patriarchy. I mean, this is always the sort of the conundrum. If feminism is brought up, isn't patriarchy then implied? Not necessarily. And she didn't dwell too much on. Well, no, I take it back. All the men in the room against Madeleine Albright. Yeah, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that. She brought up a little bit. It was hinted at, just a little bit. Wage gap. She never talked about earnings. She never talked about pay. So that never came up. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. No. Word salad. I understood what she was saying. There wasn't a WTF moment. There wasn't a just nonsense coming out of her mouth kind of thing with no connection to anything. So no, I don't think so. Contradicts own point or argument. Again, not working to better yourself, relying on the knowledge of others, and taking someone dismissing your desire to improve yourself as a win. It seems self-defeatist in the first place. And here's the thing: this is the thing that frustrates me about the whole thing. She had the right instinct to go and try to pursue further education so she could excel in the industry she ended up in. But then she's like, but somebody told me I didn't have to, so I stopped. That just seems so. You want to talk about being having no self-confidence? That's just being actively self-defeatist. So, yeah, I think if I'm not completely mistaken.
Bingo.
What?
Of course!
So there you go. Bingo number 2. Onward we go. A list. She never gave us a list like step 1, step 2, step 3. So I don't think so. White supremacy. She did mention diverse voices. She mentioned people of, at least by implication, when you started bringing up race and so on. Yeah. So I'll give it that one. And lastly, argumentative non sequitur. Something she brought up that had nothing to do with anything. I don't think so. Most of her examples or bits and pieces, they all related back to the main subject. So I don't think that qualifies. So anyway, that is the bingo card as I have it. If you have suggestions or arguments for squares to be circled on this second feature of the double feature, the unanticipated double feature, please put them in the chat now. And be sure to tag me in that comment so I can discern from the rest, and we'll go through some things here. Advocatus Diaboli, she would be CEO of her own intergalactic conglomerate were we not holding her down. I guess so. And she is. She's got her own website and consulting service and everything else. Zeke Weiss, so no merit, must be safe space, lowest common denominator. Yeah, that will work. Sure thing, crazy lady. Yeah, well, I don't know. Women has issues, only conclusion from this presentation. It was another one of those things where I cannot help but think I am watching someone play out their own internal monologue on a stage in front of an audience. And it just doesn't quite add up. It doesn't quite add up. Let's see. Advocatus again. Funny how the thing to blame for her problems was the attempt to fix those historic inequalities she wants to end. Real brain scratcher there. I know, isn't it though? It's like she could, I mean, and she said she was in the process. She got through like what, 3 sections or something of a engineering degree, and then she just threw up her hands when somebody told her, "Oh, it's okay, you don't have to." Why not continue? I don't know. Let's see. Oh, Jamie Milquist. What did I miss? Oh, Jamie, well, you missed an NFT TEDx that had nothing to do with NFTs and was probably one of the worst put together TEDx's I've watched in recent history. Maybe it was even worse than the lady talking about, what was it? The weather. I just remember the thumbnail said hurricane warning. That was like 3 or 4 TEDx's back. I forget now. It was worse than that one. Like that one was pretty bad, but this one was worse than that, which is saying something. First Joe O, thank you, Scribe. You're welcome. What did I do? Nathaniel Taylor, a list. She said 1, which is the start of a list. When did she say 1? Did I miss that? Dex Orion, or sorry, I'm trying to remember now. Something Dr. Pepper Overlord. I forget what it was. Anyway, simply put, she's a user and a manipulator keeping her job due to favoritism or her job not worrying about the cost of providing her salary. She really didn't do a good job explaining the logic behind what her job was versus what she was qualified for, and seemed to just accept the fact that, well, everybody says that I'm doing great, so obviously I belong here, right? I just don't believe it in myself. She was conflating an actual lack of relevance to her job with self-doubt. That's what I kept getting from listening to her, is that she's working very hard to convince herself that, no, it's not that I don't belong here. It's that I believe I don't belong here, right? Nathaniel Taylor, the one question that you started asking yourself before going into the room. Oh, that's not a list, though. That's just the importance. That's the most important question. Most powerful question. I see what you're trying to do there, but I'm not falling for it. I'm not falling for it. Bridget. For computer science, there are many non-degree certifications one can receive, no degree required. Sure. I mean, anything would have been better than having no knowledge whatsoever, even if it was just something where she'd have enough of a knowledge base to understand the high levels of what her team was doing, right? I mean, I work in a job where I interact with very, very technically minded people all the time, okay? And I end up being the middleman for customer requests and eventual outcomes in product. And I have to be able to communicate both between the client and our technical people back and forth with what they're asking for. And then I having a knowledge of what it would take to do that on a high level and being able to then sort of work with the technical people to figure out a solution, right? I couldn't code to save my life for the things that we do in my job, right? But I have a high enough level understanding of the limitations and capabilities of what it is that we do that I can communicate to a client before I even go to the developer and let them know where the boundaries are, so that I'm not just deluging the developers with a bunch of requests and things that they're ultimately either going to become frustrated with or have to come back and explain to me, and so on. There is a value to having even just the most cursory knowledge of things that are slightly outside your abilities. That's perfectly fine. And she could have done that, and she should have done that. But she didn't. She didn't need to. Just find Joe down the hall. He'll do it for you. Anyway. There is value to knowledge, even if it's not expertise. Having an understanding of the basics of something can be so valuable when working in a team or working in a supervisory position or working as a go-between. You know, it is useful. It is something. Yvonne Solomon, for a list, she didn't start to say what things qualify as a diverse voice. I don't know. I missed it a little. Oh, that's right. She did list off what. Oh, that's right. That's right. You know, Yvonne, she did describe what goes into a diverse voice. You know, someone who asks questions, someone who solves problems or looks for ways outside of the box. You're absolutely right. That was a list. And so a list it shall be. Thank you, Yvonne. Good call. Circle in that one. All right. Any other arguments for squares to be circled, guys? We got 2 bingos out of the deal. We're almost to maybe another one. It depends. So Ebony Williams, I'm still here just lurking. Well, you don't have to lurk. Look, Ebony, you are qualified to be an active participant in this chat. You have the tenure, the knowledge, and the experience that you don't have to feel that your voice is being set aside. I just want you to know that. And if you want to get an engineering degree, you go right ahead. I won't recommend you down to Joe. You can do that if you'd like. Let's see. Seftus Wolf, if there is a most important question, then there is a list of questions. Okay. All right. Well, a list has been circled. A list has been circled. There you go. Any other arguments for squares to be circled, guys? Because I'm coming up on the end of the show, I think. So out of a double feature, we had 2 WTF moments on the first one and 2 bingos on the second one. Well, that's balanced perfectly, as all things should be. So with that, everyone, I think I'm going to call it here. Thank you for joining me for this unexpected double feature. That first TEDx was possibly the worst TEDx of 2022. I mean, there might be competitors previously. I've probably forgotten them from trauma and PTSD at this point, but certainly closing out 2022, that has to be the worst TEDx I've watched in both structure and content in a long time. And this one, more well presented, still a lot of question marks going on there. But that aside, if you'd like to hear more from me, you can find me here Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday stream, where I'll go over a thing, which I haven't decided yet. I usually figure that out on Saturday. So you just have to watch my Twitter for that, and I'll notify you as soon as I know. And my Twitter is @scribe_light. And of course, I'll be here again next week, next Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for the next TED Excellence. I'm not quite sure what I'll do for the last TED Excellence of the year. I'll have to find something interesting for that one. Let's see. Channel shout out for the day. What channel shout out shall I do? Who do I watch? I already talked about CoffeeZilla earlier. How about Dave's Lemonade? If you guys like long-form true crime analysis and cases and courtroom drama and interrogations and all that good stuff, check out Dave's Lemonade on YouTube and tell him Scribe sent you. I talk to Dave occasionally. He's a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. So check him out. But beyond that, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box. And please do take a look at those GoFundMe's. At this time of year, every little bit helps. Thank you so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. But with that, everyone, thank you again for joining me. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.